Good day, duelists, and look at this beautiful, beautiful sight. I have over here one booster from each of the 12 sets ever released in English Duel Masters, from the classic base set all the way down to the elusive Thrash of Hybrid Mega Creatures. It's always been my dream to open one of each of those, but if you're a Duel Masters collector, you know that these not only cost hundreds of dollars each, especially for the later set ones, but they also can be very difficult to find nowadays in the first place. But I finally do have one of each of them, so buckle up and join me in this ultimate Duel Masters pack opening. Will we hit any iconic cards? Will it be only duds? There is only one way to find out, so let's dive in, starting of course with the very first Duel Masters set, base set. Opening up the very first pack of this series. And let's see what we get in this one. I will be skipping over the puzzle pieces and get to the actual cards. Our first card is Fire Sweeper, Burning Hellion. Then we have Burning Mane, a classic. It pulled a young tree up by its roots, swinging it over its head as though it were a twig. Next up, Solar Ray taps one creature. Light Civilization used to be my favorite all the way back in base set. Then we have Bone Assassin, the Ripper. So many iconic cards in here. Then we have Deadly Fighter Braidclaw, of course the best starting creature for aggressive decks. Next up, Spiral Gate, another classic player in Duel Masters. We have Poisonous Dahlia as our uncommon, and Meteosaur as another uncommon. Dark Raven, Shadow of Grief, 4 mana, 1000 blocker. And then our final card is Dark Clown for our rare. And that is our first pack, so no foils in here, but that's good. It means that we're saving our luck for the later sets. Let's move on to DM02, Evo Crushinators of Doom. Now in this set, there are a bunch of cards I'd really like to get, like Crystal Paladin would be one of them. It would be amazing to pull one of those, but we're starting off with a Critical Blade. Then we have Galsaur. Next up, Rainbow Stone puts 1 mana from your deck, pick a color, any color, and you put it into your mana zone. Then we have Magris, Vizier of Magnetism. I love this card. It's one of the greatest light creatures for tempo decks. 4 mana, 3000, and when you put this creature into the battle zone, you get to draw 1 card. And next up we have Recon Operation, which allows you to look at some of your opponent's shields. I always found this card a bit weird. Then we have my favorite card. I'm so glad we pulled one of these. Horrid Worm, of course, the card with the best artwork in Duel Masters. Then we have Stained Glass for our uncommon, which means we're sadly not going to be getting a foil. We have General Dark Fiend for our rare. Armored Cannon Barbaro, in my opinion, one of the worst cards released. It's just a 3000 body and you have to give up one of your creatures to play it since it's an evolution. And lastly we have Win the Oracle. So no foils in our first 2 sets, but again that's good, It means we're saving up our luck for the later sets where we really want to get those crazy pulls. Again, puzzle piece, and let's get going with GM03. Snip Striker Bullraiser, a very strong card, 2 mana for 3000, great power ratio. Then we have Your Pale, Seeker of Sunlight for those monolight decks out there. Next up we have Sword Butterfly. I really used to play this card a lot, especially in those GBA video games, because like it goes up to 5000 when it attacks, and for 3 mana that's really not all that bad. Next up, Emerald. I am actually missing some emeralds, so I'm happy we pulled one of these. They are not that easy to come by, surprisingly, nowadays. Next up we have Snake Attack, turning all of your creatures into double breakers for those Darkness Rush decks. Volcanic Arrows next, of course a classic player, a great removal option for aggressive fire decks. Next up we have Stinger Ball, which made it into my top 10 worst cards of Duel Masters video. So there we go. And Gamil, Knight of Hatred, is our rare. The holes it digs its friends out of are the holes it buries its enemies in. There we go, now you know. It's a demon command and that will be our rare, which means sadly no foil here either. Armored Warrior, Quellos, I don't even know what this card does. Whenever this creature attacks, put a non-fire card from your mana zone into your graveyard. Then your opponent chooses a non-fire card in his mana zone and puts it into his graveyard. This would be interesting in some sort of turbo burn list. Would be interesting. And Boomerang Comet for our final card. You can return a card from your mana zone to your hand, and then this goes into your mana zone after you play it. Moving on to DM04, this is where I would really love to pull some foils from, you know, those Alcadiases, those Balams. Those are really special cards to me, as I used to absolutely love them as a kid. But let's see what we pull from this puzzle piece once again. And Ambergrass, shield trigger creatures, DM04 was when they first introduced them. Each surge of electricity triggers a growth spurt. So there we go. We have Aqua Guard, which we got in DM04 in English, but they got in DM01 in the original Japanese release. Gregorian Worm, a classic standard piece of the Worms deck since it's a shield trigger creature and provides that valuable evolution bait. Keeper of the Sunlit Abyss, which buffs light and darkness creatures in the battle zone. Then we have Gulanria Speed Guardian, which cannot be attacked or blocked by darkness creature. Of course, this set was all focused on the battle between light and darkness. And we have a super rare, our first ever foil. It's Rimuel, Cloudbreak Elemental. When you put this creature into the battle zone, tap one of your opponent's creatures in the battle zone for each untapped light card in your mana zone. And I always thought this card was weird because for 8 mana, I think you can make it tap everything and it would still probably be fine. I don't know why they had this restriction that you also need to have some untapped mana. So I think this was unplayable when it came out at 8 mana, but with Soul Swap existing, there's some potential because you can keep a lot of mana untapped if you're summoning it using Soul Swap. But there we go, we have one super rare. I'm very happy to pull at least some foils. Hydro Hurricane, another great card for our rare. And then we have Screaming Sunburst for our uncommon. Soul Gulp, which makes your opponent discard cards for each light creature they control. And finally, Mistreas. There we go. Now this is a card. Whenever another creature is put into the battle zone, you may draw a card. And this is a good one to pull because, of course, it is a centerpiece in many decks because of the draw power it provides. Moving on to DM05, Survivors of the Megapocalypse. There are some great cards that I would like to pull from here as well. Of course, this is the set that introduced Survivors, though most of the really great Survivors came out in DM06. But let's see what we get here. We have Crow Winger, which gets powered up for each water and darkness creature in the battle zone. It's not all that bad, 2 mana 1000. Lurking Eel, another card from my top 10 worst cards of Duel Masters video. It's just a half blocker for 6 mana. Gigazoo is our next card. Perhaps I went a little too far on the experiment, says Balo, Master of Death. So there we go, kind of a cute flavor text there. Of course, Chimeras are these monstrous things. Ruthless Sky Terror, a card that honestly has some potential. It can attack untapped water creatures, but this card was just much better in the Japanese release. I don't really know why they nerfed it, but there we go. We have Cargo, Vizier of Rain Clouds, which cannot be blocked by big boys. Next up, Smashhorn Q, so our first survivor from the Survivor set. It's actually a very key piece. I don't know if you can play like any Survivor deck without Smashhorn, so the backbone of Survivor decks is here. Next up we have Brutal Charge for our rare, and honestly this card I think has some potential in some decks. It allows you to, at the end of your turn, search a creature for every shield you have broken. I think in draft, especially in cube formats, it can really work. And Bogash Dragon, I have a story about this card. When I was a kid, I thought Power Attacker stayed on the creature. Like every time it attacks, it would bump itself up by 8000 and we would put counters on it to memorize how much power we got. And under those conditions, this card was a little bit better. I thought this card was absolutely bonkers because you attack with it 2 times, it's already at 20,000 Yeah, there we go. Even if it were that way, it probably wouldn't see play, honestly, in competitive Duel Masters. Another Survivor and Balus Dogfight Enforcer, which untaps itself and consequently all survivors that you control. And finally, Enchanted Soil, which allows you to get 2 mana from your graveyard. Next up on our list, we have DM06, and in this set, there are some real valuable chase cards. But of course, being a 120 card set, you know, you cannot guarantee any pulls, but it would be great to get like some of the super rares. Bometheus would be great, or Gigas out, but one can only hope. Let's see what we actually get. We have Junkat's Rabbit Doll, which is just a 2 mana 2000 vanilla. Automated Weapon Master Makai. This creature must attack each turn if able, a fire beater. Next up, Sphere of Wonder. I always like this card. It generates an extra shield if your opponent has more shields than you. I think this card would be very playable if we didn't get Skysword later on in DM10, which kind of makes the card obsolete. Next up we have Trench Scarab, which is again a card that I used to play in those GBA games because it goes up to 7000 when it attacks for just 3 mana, so it can pretty much kill anything. Then we have Sopian, another common Cyberlord that can make your things unblockable. I always really like the art on this card. I think it looks kinda cute. And next up we have Grinning Axe the Monstrosity. That thing looks like it's eating its own face, says Mini Titan Get. And let's see if we get a foil. No, we get Armor Decimator Valkyzer, which honestly is not that terrible of a card. It evolves on top of a human and can pop something when it enters the battle zone. But a bit disappointing that we didn't get any foils, but it is what it is. Adomis the Oracle can look at your opponent's shields instead of attacking. Then we have Mystic Dreamscape. It's a shield trigger that lets you take mana back to your hand, which is a cute mechanic that is played in some very fringe strategies. And finally, Skullcutter, Swarm Leader. At the end of each of your turns, if this is the only creature in the battle zone, destroy it. Good job everyone, the diet is really working. A bit of a weird drawback on just a 4 mana 4000, but there we go. So we've gone through half of our packs and we only managed to get 1 foil, but that foil is a super rare and it is a cool one. It's an Angel Command, always love those. But it's time to move on to the second half of Duel Masters sets, which honestly, I mean, this is where it gets really spicy, I think. Because these are the packs, I mean, that are very, very rare and difficult to come by. Starting off with DM07, these are the packs that we really would love to pull something good out of. Let's start out with Thresh of the Hybrid, what was it called? Thundercharge of Distractions, I mean. The thing about this set, DM07, is kind of widely regarded as one of the worst Duel Master sets to ever be released in terms of card quality, but there's still some decent things that we can be pulling. We have Popple, Flower Petal Dancer, which can ramp you up. Next up, Garatiano. I've never seen this card before in my life. Instead of attacking, it can look at the top 3 cards of your deck and put them back in any order. Not terrible, I guess, for like draft or cube or whatever. Next up we have Dream Pirate, Shadow of Theft. Whenever it would be destroyed, you may return it to hand instead. And if you do, put a card from your hand into the graveyard. So there we go. Next up we have Cook Polon. There we go. That's a very strong card. This is so good against aggressive decks because of the fact that it can't be attacked. Many aggressive decks just don't have an out for it. You can just keep swinging and keep swinging with it and taking one shot at a time with little to no consequence. Then we have Rom Vizier of Tendrils, which is kind of like Fonge from DM02, but this is an initiate which can be relevant. And next up we have Stinger Horn, the Delver, power attacker plus 1000 and water stealth. And our next card is Kizar Basiku, the Outrageous. Now this is a good card. It's a solid initiate evolution. It's got 8500 power, which is a lot. But unfortunately, this probably means that we did not get a foil in this one either. So Energy Charger is our next card. Then we have Rondobil, the Explorer. I always liked Explorers, like Gladiators, the way they look. I think they look really cool, even though maybe most of them are not playable. And in the end, we have Brood Shell, which can return a creature from your mana zone to your hand instead of attacking. And with this worst set of Duel Masters out of the way, it's time to get into the real spicy stuff. In Epic Dragons of Hyper Chaos, of course, there are a lot of really solid cards that we would love to pull from here. I mean, the foils in this set are just absolutely insane. You know, you have Abzadova, you have Bajula, and everything in between. It would be really cool to pull one of those, but based on our luck so far with only just one foil, I'm not holding my breath. Necro Dragon Giland is a very playable dragon. 4 mana 6000 double breaker is a great ratio. Of course it dies after it battles, but it can still put up a lot of pressure. Toto Pipichi turns all of your dragons into speed attackers. Then we have Misha, Channeler of Suns, which can't be attacked by any creature that has dragon in its race. That's a very specific effect. Senya, Orchard Avenger, is a Turbo Rush. I think this is when they introduced the Turbo Rush mechanic, right? Yeah, I think so. Then we have Illusion Fish, another Turbo Rush. Turbo Rush, by the way, it gets activated when another creature breaks a shield and it makes this guy, for example, unblockable. Next up we have Tyrant Worm, which I always thought had some potential. Of course it's a 1 mana 2000, which is a great ratio, but if you put another creature into the battle zone, this gets destroyed. So it's a bit counterproductive because you want to use it in an aggressive deck, but you can't because you want to play more creatures. But maybe in Worm decks it has some potential. And our next card is Trumis, Zephyr Guardian. Whenever any of your creature attacks, you may choose one of your opponent's creature in the battle zone and tap it. This is not the worst card in the universe, I suppose, but 6 mana is a lot to ask for that effect. Colosseum's Shell, just stop for a moment and appreciate this card art. Isn't it great? Of course, the effect is nothing great, but just look at it. This was always one of my favorite artworks in Duel Masters. Next up we have Wavelance, choose a creature in the battle zone and return it to its owner's hand. So it's kind of like a worse Farragate, but if it's a dragon you also get to draw a card. This would be an interesting card if side decking was allowed in Duel Masters. And finally Galshak, Mechanical Doll, one of the better Turbo Rush creatures because it can just destroy something every time it attacks. So far still just one foil and we've only got 4 packs to go. I hope we can at least pull one more. It would be great to pull one foil from these later sets, but at this point my hopes are kind of, you know, they're not great. Let's move on to DM09. Of course there's a lot of great cards in here as well. But let's see what we actually end up pulling. Tentacle Cluster. Whenever this creature is attacking your opponent and isn't blocked, you may choose a creature in the battle zone and return it to its owner's hand. This card is interesting. I haven't seen it before, but it looks interesting. And then Trixio, the Wicked Doll, a very oppressive mid-range creature. Whenever it attacks, your opponent has to choose a creature in the battle zone and destroy it. So it's a bit weird, like it's a bit awkward to play into this card. If you see it on your opponent's board, do you summon anything knowing that if it attacks, it will just die? Yeah, there we go. Very interesting card, Trixio. Relentless Blitz, it can attack untapped creatures and can be blocked while attacking a creature. That's I guess a removal option for fire, which is not all that horrible. Cosmic Wing makes one of your creatures unblockable. I always found it like unfathomable that this card costs 3 mana. 3 mana to make one creature unblockable is just crazy. They really overvalued unblockable, I feel like. Then we have Dance of the Sproutings, which allows you to get some mana from your hand. Then we have Scout Cluster, which is a blocker, and when you put another creature into the battle zone, return this creature from the battle zone to your hand. That is a very interesting line of text. We have Tekorax next, which when you put it into the battle zone, you can look at all of your opponent's shields. I honestly feel like this effect might be more decent than meets the eye, because you get to look at all of them, unlike with some other cards. But anyway, Grinning Hunger. Your opponent chooses either a creature or a shield and puts it into the graveyard. I think this card has some potential as well, maybe. We have Fists of Forever, which allows one creature to attack everything. and during a turn. Of course, there's this classic combo with this and Bazagazil Dragon that you can just clear a board. Unfortunately, this means no foil in this pack either. We just got a Mihail Celestial Elemental, which makes things basically indestructible. Unfortunately, not a foil, so we are down to 3 packs, and it's kind of looking grim. Only 1 foil so far, but next up, and this is the pack that I'm most excited to open with, it is DM10 Shockwaves of the Shattered Rainbow. This set, of course, in my opinion, and probably many other players' opinions, is the strongest set to ever be released in English Duel Masters in terms of power level, so I'm really hoping that we pull some nice things from it. Of course, every single foil from this set is valuable, but you know, with our luck so far, I would not be too optimistic about pulling any foils. So let's start out with our first card, which is Mil Poro. Oh, this is when they introduced Silent Skill, right? This is probably one of the better Silent Skill cards. It allows you to draw a card if it stays tapped. But of course, Silent Skill itself as a mechanic, I've talked about this before, is not all that strong. Infernal Command, it makes something attack if able, which is interesting, but there is a card that makes all creatures attack if able, so the advantage of this, I suppose, is a shield trigger, but that's very conditional. Cragsdoor is just a 3 mana 3000 vanilla, looks cool. Then we have Jiggly Totem. While attacking this creature gets plus 1000 for each tapped card in your mana zone for 4 mana. That is a lot to ask of a card. Then we have Flohandi the Spylord, another silent skill creature that can tap 2 things if it stays tapped. This is not terrible, but again, silent skill not the best mechanic in the game. Then we have Tide Patroller, which is just a blocker. Of course, this is the set when they introduced multi-civ cards, so it would be great if we could pull at least some of those. So far, 0 multi-civ cards, which is just quite unlikely for Shockwaves of the Shattered Rainbow pack, but there we go. There is our first multi-civ card. It is a Gonta, the Warrior Savage, one of the better ones as well, 2 mana for 4000 power. It's quite a strong creature. And our next card is Galek, the Shadow Warrior, so no foil here either, but this is not a bad card. It can destroy a blocker and discard a card from the opponent's hand. And our rare is Crystal Spin Slicer. This is actually a really nice pull. English Crystal Spin Slicer is a card that's quite difficult to come by nowadays, and I don't have a full playset, so at least I'm happy about pulling one of these. And next up, our final 2 booster packs. Please, at least one more foil. We have a DM11 booster pack ready to open. Of course, there's always the possibility that these have been weighted or whatever, or repackaged, and that's why we're not getting that many foils. But yeah, it's always a possibility. We will never know. We can just open the booster packs. We have Quill Spike Rumbler. Whenever this creature attacks, whenever this creature attacks a creature, this creature gets plus 3000 power, so it's sort of like a worse power attacker, I suppose, that's conditional on just attacking creatures. Next up, we have Solar Trap, which is a 1 mana tap an opponent's creature, so it's like Solar Ray, 1 mana cheaper, but it doesn't have the shield trigger ability. Next up, we have Time Scout, and yeah, this card becomes infinitely more valuable if we got DM13 in the English release, because there's a Merfolk evolution in there that is quite strong, but as it stands, this card is not really all that great. Our next card is Beracha, the Hidden Gluton, which is just a 5 mana 3000 Slayer, so it's a functional reprint of Gigagili from DM01. Though with a worse race, because I don't think there is any support for Pandora's Box, at least not in the English game, but there is some support for Chimeras. Next up, we have Bread Scatter, which is, 2 mana, 1000 shield trigger. It's not all that bad. Shield trigger creatures are always valuable. Rainbow Gate, which allows you to search a multicolored creature from your deck and put it into your hand. This is not that bad in Bombazar decks, I guess, especially if Bombazar is like limited to 1 or whatever. And our next card is Jabaha Automaton, which you can put on one of your Xenopards, and it gets power attacker plus 4000 and double breaker. So I guess it's meant to be like a cheap double breaker. It can go up to 10,000, but there's limited Xenopath support, and if you're looking for like cheap double breakers, you're probably better off running Armored Blaster Valdios or something similar. And next up we have Morbid Medicine, a good card to pull. It allows you to get 2 cards from graveyard, and of course control decks really like this card. Then we have Hazard Hopper. At the end of each of your turns, if this creature broke any shields, return it to your hand. So it's a cheap-ish creature, but with a downside. And our final card is Reap and Sow, which I really like. It's a great card in some burn strategies. It allows you to both burn your opponent's mana and ramp yourself up in the process. And finally, our last booster pack, our last chance to pull one more foil out of this. So far, this has not been a great opening, but there's always a chance to be redeemed with this final pack. So let's see if we get anything here. We have Giga Slug, which is a good card in Hydro Hurricane because it's a Chimera and you can use it for that Chimera synergy. We have Gandaval Stapler. I have no idea what this card does. Whenever another creature is put into the battle zone, tap this creature. Interesting. Not that great, I suppose, because you can't really use it in aggressive decks since it would tap itself before it can attack. Then we have Uncanny Turnip, right, more Wave Strikers. Wave Striker was an interesting archetype that activates the ability if there's at least 3 of them, and this was one of the key players in there. Of course, it's still only just a common, but a strong one at that. Mizoid the Oracle, when you put this creature into the battle zone, you may choose a darkness or fire creature and tap it. So that is a decent one. Our next card is a Willy Carpenter. When you put this creature into the battle zone, draw up to 2 cards, then discard 2 cards from your hand. This is an interesting one to have. Next up we have Giga Raise, which I always thought is quite... it has quite some potential in the right decks. When you put it into the battle zone, you may return a water or fire creature from your graveyard to your hand. So if you can utilize this effect, it's basically a +1 on the body, but you can pick what you get, so it's quite decent in that sense. And our next card is Muramasa's Knife. This creature can attack untapped creatures as an uncommon. Mecha Dragon's Breath. This is a good card to pull. You choose a power and then you kill everything with that power, which gets around untargetable things like Petrova and such. And it seems like we'll not be getting a foil in this one either. Our uncommon is Enigmatic Cascade, which you can discard any number of cards and then draw that many cards. Of course, it's a -1, so it's not great. And our final card, our rare... Wait, what was our rare in this set? Oh, there we go, it's Mecha Dragon's Breath. Yeah, never mind. And yeah, Gigapi Ponto is just our final card, which is an uncommon. 3 mana, 4000. They released the cycle of creatures after, like, they're in DM12, but in DM10 they already had Gonta, so it's a bit weird that they also released these ones. But these ones are not bad either. So after opening 12 packs of Duel Masters, one from each set released in English, we got a big stack of commons. We got a not so big stack of uncommons. We did get some decent rares like Mecha Dragon's Breath, Crystal Spin Slicer, and even Kizabasiku and Valkaiser are sort of interesting cards to pull. But we only got one foil in Rimwell Cloudbreak Elemental. So was this the best Duel Masters opening or the worst Duel Masters opening? You let me know that in the comments. At any rate, I did have a lot of fun opening these, even though the results were maybe a bit disappointing with the value that we got from them. But it is what it is. I finally got to open these booster packs, and yeah, I hope you enjoyed going through this with me. See you next time, duelists, and take care.